Welcome to this review of Nioh 3. I'm Axel and I have over 4,000 hours on the Nioh series, over 3,000 on Nioh 2, mainly challenge running and speed running. I've already beaten Nioh 3 and I've gotten all the achievements. And I'm here to talk about everything that I think is worthwhile noting when talking about this game as it is right now. Keep in mind that this is before official release, so things are bound to change. So what are the main features that make Nioh 3 special? First off, we have an open field compared to the other Niohs, which were mission-based. Secondly, we have the ability to jump and have aerial combat, especially with the ninja style. Furthermore, we have a revamped samurai style with the deflect mechanic that wasn't present in the previous Nioh games. And we have Arts Proficiency, which is gonna buff our ability to combo in this game. And let's not forget about those froze moons. If you want to know more about the samurai style combat, I have a tutorial that I made the other day. Check it out on the description. Ninja style specializes in evasion and aerial attacks. It doesn't have as much of a complex system because it doesn't have stances, but it does offer plenty of ninjutsu to use in order to make more damage at distance or navigate towards the back of your enemies more often, which is where the damage of ninja style shines. Pair this with the fact that it can sustain aerial combos, and you can have a very powerful system to your disposal on both ninja style and samurai style. On top of all of this, in Nioh 1 we had Living Weapon, in Nioh 2 we had Yokai Shift, and in Nioh 3 we have a Living Artifact, which is similar in many ways to Living Weapon, but in a very revamped way. And now we can use our stances and skills in this mode, something that we could not do before, making this Living Artifact way more versatile than Living Weapon ever was. Now, I've been playing on the PC version, and my experience so far has been pretty positive with the performance. But this seems to differ depending on your build. Even if your build might be more powerful overall or less powerful overall, that doesn't mean that it's gonna be feeling better or worse. And I expect this to change with new patches that come along. With that said, let's start talking about the game itself. So at the very beginning, we are able to make our own character, which has been a thing since Nioh 2, and I really appreciate this kind of stuff. The character creator is actually really good, although I do think it could use some extra options like longer hair, more accessories, and some other things. Additionally, this game, since it splits the gameplay between samurai style and ninja style, also lets you split your appearance between samurai style and ninja style, making two different looking characters. Although this doesn't mean that you can make a male character and a female character at this point at least. Once you make your character, you can proceed to the beginning of the game. And sadly, this is the part that I have the biggest gripe with. I won't get into too many details because I will make a feedback about it later on, but it feels extremely limiting and slow-paced compared to the other Niohs. And it also doesn't really make too much sense for me story-wise. Let me explain. In Nioh 1, you start off with William in the Tower of London. William doesn't know anything about Japanese martial arts at this point, so it makes perfect sense that, we just start with regular meat stands that we don't even know about, and we don't have any keeples or anything like that. But even though it does make sense, the start of the game is not that long anyways, so it doesn't feel too much of a drag. In Nioh 2, we are a Shiftling, part human, part yokai, and we have access to all stances at the beginning of the game, and we are not assaulted by tutorial pop-ups. Furthermore, in both Nioh 1 and 2, we are able to select our weapons with total freedom. In Nioh 1 after the Tower of London, and in Nioh 2 just at the very beginning, right after making our character. In Nioh 3, you are a candidate for a shogun, someone who is supposed to be trained in martial arts, but somehow we start with a very specific tutorial where it seems like you have never touched a weapon in your life, but then at the same time you have skills on that weapon, or any of the weapons that you pick, and then it also seems like you have been fighting against your brother often. This is very strange to me, considering how the stances in Samurai should be way more of a basic thing to know before you start using skills on the specific weapons, much less several different kinds of weapons. After you go through the first part of the tutorial area, you are introduced to the ninja style. I don't have too many gripes on how this is addressed, besides the fact that there's tutorial pop-ups coming out. Either way, the practice of making us wait for NPCs to do their thing is still going. Afterwards, you get a forced death on a tutorial boss, and once you exit that tutorial area, you can select your first spirit. This time around, instead of picking between 3 spirits, we are picking between 2 different variations of the same spirit. One for samurai and one for ninja. Once we do this, we come back and enter a new era. A few years back into the past. In this era, we are still locked on mid-stance, and we have to progress through the entire mission, that thankfully is not too long, with mid-stance samurai style and ninja style. After we defeat the first actual boss of the game opens up and we are able to explore and get samurai locks and ninja locks, which will be converted into samurai points and ninja points. With this, we are able to finally get our hands into the high stance and low stance, several minutes into the start of the game. Now, in terms of open field exploration, I do not have much negative things to talk about. I think it is quite nice. It's not too big, it's not that small. It definitely lets you explore a lot, and it doesn't feel like it lacks enemies or there's too many. One thing that I will say though is that we are not able to acquire samurai points or ninja points with proficiency like we could in Nioh 1 and 2. We just gather locks, which is not a big deal, but I do find it strange the fact that we are not really getting more points when fighting, and instead we're just relying completely on samurai and ninja locks. At some point, depending on where you progress, you will unlock the Guardian Spirit skill. Guardian Spirit skills are replacing yokai abilities from Nioh 2. In Nioh 3, we have Spirit Force instead of Anima from Nioh 2. And that is the bar that we use in order to use Guardian Spirit skills. Furthermore, Guardian Spirit skills let us counter burst attacks, with the caveat that we need to unlock this. Yes, you can use Guardian Spirit skills, but not counter until you unlock that ability to counter, which I also find very odd. As you progress through the game more, you finally unlock the ability to go to the hub, and here you can get more weapons via forging, and talk to different NPCs and get their missions, such as the Warrior Novice, Ninja Novice, and Magic Novice. These dojos will unlock extra abilities, such as the Frost Moons from the Warrior Novice. As we progress further in the story, we unlock the ability to burst counter with a Guardian Spirit skill. Then eventually, after we defeat a certain boss, we are able to do the Adept dojos, which let us acquire the ability to equip 2 weapons per style. At this point, we are also entering another time period, which I won't spoil. Past this point of the review, I'd like to address a couple of things that I've noticed in the later stages of the game. One of them is that, at least on my end, on my PC, I did get some dips in certain areas of the game, and I assume it's mainly because of the particle effects surrounding the area. Another thing that I'd like to point out is that while I consider that many of the enemies and bosses are really nice, and some harder, some easier, and whatnot. I do think that in the case of the build that I played, some of the human bosses were extremely overpowered. And by this what I mean is things like not only are they super fast, but also have hyper armor constantly. And I consider them even more overpowered than the DLC ones in Nioh 2, which is saying something. Although I have many hours on the Nioh series, I still remember how my first playthroughs felt like. And I can tell you this, considering these human fights especially, but even without them, I find that the playthrough of Nioh 3 overall is harder, substantially harder than in Nioh 1 and 2. Again, I'm not talking about how Nioh 1 and 2 feel right now, but about how they felt on my first playthrough. Granted, of course, I did not abuse any kind of specific build, or I didn't try to go super powerful or anything like that, since I don't like doing that. But comparing my experiences, yeah, it definitely felt like that. I also didn't actively nerf myself that much compared to what I did in Nioh 2. There is one more change that they made compared to Nioh 2, and that is the fact that we no longer have the hidden skill mechanic, which was very frustrating for all players in Nioh 2. For anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, the hidden skills were skills that you had to farm on specific bosses in order to obtain them. You were not guaranteed to get that skill, so you could get it on the first try, or you could spend the whole afternoon and not get it, depending on your luck. And rinse and repeat for every single skill. Not very fun, right? So in Nioh 3, thankfully, we have different systems. Now we have the Chijikos, which allow us to obtain not only ninja logs and samurai logs, but also obtain variations of our skills. This is very nice because, you find it, you shoot it, you pet it, and then you obtain the thing. Every time. No need to farm. Now, other ways to obtain more skills is the masters, which is something that makes perfect sense, and I'm very glad that it is like this in this game. Basically, in different areas of each region, you will find masters of certain weapons, and depending on the weapon that they have and the skills that they have, once you defeat them, they will give you that skill, guaranteed. So it is very, very nice. Now, there is one caveat to acquiring skills in Nioh 3, and that is the fact that we also have the crucible weapons. Now, I will say this, that even though crucible weapons would need to be farmed, you are not obliged in any way to farm specific things. You can just clear out crucibles and you will be getting them every now and then. In order to acquire the skills that these weapons have permanently, you need to max out their familiarity. There are two main ways to max out their familiarity. One is obviously to use them, equip them and use them. And another one is equip as many as you can, ideally 4, 2 on samurai, 2 on ninja once you have that, and then use whetstones. Depending on the weapon, it might require 750 familiarity or 900 familiarity, in which case it would be like 5 whetstones or 6 whetstones. Keep that in mind. Although this is still farming for specific skills, I'm sure it will not lead to the same frustration that we had with Nioh 2 with the hidden skills. Overall, in terms of the gameplay experience, while the start of the game feels like a chore due to the limitations, I am very happy about the overall experience in mid-game and end-game. And I can definitely tell you that the combat experience overall is much richer. Now, setting the gameplay aside, the story is not something that I really focus on, so I won't get into any details, but I felt overall it was good enough. Which is what I tend to say about these games. Throughout the game you will also find plenty of new faces and old faces, some of which you will find more or less pleasing than others. The music is also very in line with what we find in Nioh 2, and I think it is a good thing. Visually speaking, although many say that these games look bad, I do not really feel like that's the case. And I feel like lately people have become a bit of a snob when it comes to graphics. I don't have a problem. I'm not saying this just because I truly don't have a problem with the graphics of these games. So yeah, depending on how you look at it, it might be a negative or positive or a neutral point for you. For me personally, it's just I feel like it looks good. Now, before we move on to the final analysis, again I want to remind everyone that this is a review build that I played through before even the demo came out. So expect a patch upon release or somewhere close of the release that might address some of the problems or other things that I encountered. With all this in mind, assuming that nothing changes, I would personally give this game a 9 out of 10. And it pains me to say this because it truly has the potential to be a 10 out of 10. So I say this with 100% confidence. If they fix all these major issues, mainly regarding the limitations on early game and the tutorial pop-ups and all that stuff, for me it would be a 10 out of 10. Also, let's not forget about the overpowered human bosses. Okay, that's it. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.
Overtuned.